Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, and I'm the Chief Sales Architect of Bulletproof Selling and author of the book, Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. And so each week, multiple times a week often, we're here with the smartest people in the world of sales to help you increase the performance of your team, the performance of your pipeline, and of course, the systemization to get great results there within. So every single time that we have a guest on here, I'm really excited about all of them because we get to invite the very best speakers, authors, trainers, coaches, consultants, and those that have spent a lifetime out there in the field actually managing salespeople. And that's who we get to bring on today. So no matter who we have on, my commitment to you as of every one of these episodes, we're going to build a sales system that you can use no matter the size of your goals or the size of your team. So I'm very excited to be bringing on today's guest because I've known him for a couple of years. He's been in my network locally here in Tampa, but I've always been impressed because you talk about a brilliant sales career. Well, it's this guy. So I'm really excited to bring him on, have him share a little bit about his career with you, and then we're going to build a sales system. So Mr. Bob Bolton, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Sean. Glad to be with you today.
Now, Bob, for those of you out there in the listening world and the viewing world who don't know about, all the great stuff you've accomplished in your lifetime, and I know it's been a very storied sales career for you, walk us through kind of your journey to get to this position you're in now where most of your life is dedicated to giving back to the profession of sales.
Well, I almost feel like I should be using a walker and a hearing aid because I've been doing it so long. I was very fortunate to graduate from Butler University with a radio, television, and a business administration background. And I had originally wanted to be an on-air guy. And in some ways, that's kind of come full circle. But my career started in broadcast advertising sales in Peoria, Illinois. And that was 30 plus.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate to have not only great relationships with some of the teams that I've been a part of, some of the teams that I've led, and then obviously the community at large here in the Tampa area, and then very fortunate to have worked literally from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon to California to Florida and everywhere in between. So I've had literally tens of thousands of sales conversations with people, not only in a training mode, in a selling mode, but also I've used it, in that personal environment because quite frankly, every time we're introduced to someone, it's a sales opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely. So with all of that career path, then I know for the majority of it and media advertising, for lack of a better term, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So walk us through what the sales cycle is like and some of the players, if you can mention them by name, that you've had the opportunity to do business with, because we're talking about some of the largest stations in the world, and then in some of the largest events in the world that you were selling advertising for. So I'm super interested to hear about that.
Yeah, I think probably one of the things that I can do is kind of work from the current and backwards a little bit. But currently, I'm a consultant for what was Fox Sports Sun, Fox Sports Florida, with the brand renaming. It's now Bally Sports Sun, Bally Sports Florida. And for those folks, I worked intimately with them for 5 years and then decided to semi-retire. And when I decided to do so, they were like, what? We weren't planning on you leaving anytime soon, so can you help us out? I said, absolutely. So for the past 2 years, I have been consulting for the networks with the largest local advertiser that they have in the Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Go Bolts. And that relationship started really in a very unique way because the vice president of media, who I've now become good friends with, both her and her husband, have known each other for probably 15 years, but really only until about the last 7 have we been able to do business together. And most people would think, okay, furniture store, women 25 to 54 target market, buying sports. Why?
Right.
Ultimately, I convinced them that, look, they spend so much money in every market that they're in that you can't spend any more. And that there are so many people fighting in the same size bucket for that consumer set of eyeballs that here's an arena that you can take yourself into, really be the biggest fish in the pond, and really utilize that opportunity to reach women who do watch sports, very engaged in it, and that male consumer that's involved in that household environment, sometimes maybe in an economic situation or in a dual economic situation, responsible for what's the place look like and how do I live.
Right.
So we've been very, very fortunate to have a relationship now with Rooms to Go furniture store as a big partner in the Heat now for more than 5 years, and for the Lightning now 4 years. And that relationship expanded out into the Houston Astros, the Houston Rockets, Atlanta, Nashville. So it's been very fortunate to have a relationship that expanded into the tens of millions of dollars across the United States in their southeastern footprint, all because of an idea that was, hey, let's create the rooms to go lounge.
Ah,
So
interesting.
yeah, we've outfitted a room that our announcers sit in during the break between the first and second period of hockey, at halftime during basketball games. And they basically are sitting in the rooms to go lounge, branded with their furniture, and they spend anywhere from a minute to 2 minutes in that environment talking about the game while kind of subconsciously promoting the brand and the products. So it's been a great relationship, and I feel very blessed to not only have been able to create it and craft it, but now to kind of steward it through its maturation.
And now you've got a sales cycle there that's really interesting to me, because I know you've either played the role of having to go directly to the prospects and convince them to commit hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, in the case you just mentioned, to this effort to get eyeballs on their brand. And you've also, supervised people to do that as well. So walk me through the sales process. I'm, working in advertising in your industry. I either support a team or I support their marketing effort. I need to go into my home community and convince people to create budget, essentially. They might have had a marketing budget, but probably not for what we're talking about. Walk me through the psychology of end to end, from prospect to meeting to customer, how that works in your industry.
Well, for any of us that have been doing sales for a long time, we realize that sales is an art as much as it is a science. And one of the things we have to realize is that even though we may not think there's a budget, there's always a budget. It's just about convincing someone that they should reappropriate those funds. And one of the more fun objections that I always got was, I don't have the money for that. And I said, well, is it you don't have the money for that, or I haven't convinced you that you need to reappropriate the money that you have?
That's smart.
Into this opportunity. Well, obviously, I haven't convinced you that there's enough value in this opportunity for you to be able to shift those dollars, because after all, even those commitments you've made for a year, they haven't cashed all those checks yet, right? So we've still got some money that we can move around. Is that correct? So, the sales cycle for advertising is, in some ways, can be very immediate. It could be that, one of the positions I had was a vice president with a company that worked with over 300 TV stations in the United States. And our goal was to help generate revenue with that station's web presence and their on-air presence. Sure. And I was like a paratrooper, to coin your military. I was a paratrooper where I would literally fly over. They'd drop me out of the plane. I'd land, do sales training for half a day, and then they would have 3 to 5 sales calls a day for me to help them close. And in many cases, it was one call closes. Even though they warmed it, I still had to push the prospect over the edge. So from the sales cycle, it's about prospecting, identifying that they have a need, or at least believing that they have a need, identifying whether or not your particular product or service can fill those needs, and then being able to go in and have an intelligent sales conversation with someone to identify what their needs are, determine how you can fill those needs with your products and services, and then asking them to make the commitment to buy.
And for a while, you were sitting at the level, you're going to have to help me with the job title, regional manager, sales VP. What was your position when you were full-time before you went off on your own and started consulting with a lot of different companies?
Well, one of the things that I've enjoyed is having a lot of different titles. And I frankly told everybody, you can call me janitor, just pay me well.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I don't care what I'm called. Quite frankly, if I had been able to tell everybody that I've ever worked for, all I want to be known as is the business development guy. That's all I care. Because in reality, that's what we are as professional salespeople. There are a lot of salespeople out there, but there are very few professional salespeople out there. And I believe as a business development specialist, your goal is to not just be prepared to sell whatever they told you to go out and sell this week, but to go out and find out what those needs are, find out what those opportunities are, and then fashion a creative, customized solution to that. And that's really what I've been doing. The most probably lofty title I've ever had was Vice President of Sales and Revenue Development, which I think the card was about this long.
Right.
I was responsible for all the digital revenue of a newspaper television company that had 12 TV stations and 5 daily newspapers. And I was responsible for training the sales staff, the sales management, and being able to help execute revenue generating opportunities for that company.
And it's that I want to dive into a little bit because a lot of our listeners are either salespeople on the front lines, they're managing a couple of salespeople, or they are the VP of sales or the regional director, the CRO, if you will, of their companies. So, with all the salespeople you've managed, you've seen people come in with no sales experience, and I'm sure that you've also taken over salespeople that might have had as much or more experience than you did. So, across all of that spectrum, where do you see salespeople relying on hope a little more than they should?
Well, much as you've said, hope is not a sales strategy. I worked for a gentleman 100 years ago for Clear Channel when Clear Channel only owned TV stations. I mean, if you can believe that, because now they own just about everything under the sun. But when I went to a sales seminar that was being held by the company, and the vice president of sales for the entire company stood up and said, "Hey, look, hope is not a business plan."
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we found is that, you cannot go into a situation hoping you're going to be prepared, hoping you're going to be able to hear someone say yes before you even have to ask them. I mean, that's rare, and it, quite frankly, just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So if they do, then you go, "Oh, great," and then you pack your stuff, get out, and make sure they sign something. But one of the things that I found is that the first job I ever had straight out of college, I was young, I looked young, I looked like I probably didn't shave yet. And I was going out telling every prospect everything I knew about advertising and television, and everything I knew about that particular station and that market. And after 6 months, they had told me it'd take me about a year to figure it out. And I'm like, well, wait a second. I'm kind of a sharp guy here. I can whip this thing.
Yeah. And 6 months in, I haven't got it.
Oh, yeah. And so 6 months in, I'm like, uh-oh. This isn't happening the way I thought it would. And I sat down with one of my first sales mentors, and I said, "Jim," and I can remember this like it was yesterday. I said, "Jim," I'm getting appointments. I'm going in. I'm telling him everything I know about our station, about television, the value proposition. What's wrong?" And he looks straight at me and he goes, "Shut up."
Yeah.
And I go, "What?" He goes, "No, just shut up." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Look, learn enough about their industry and their business to ask 3 intelligent, intuitive questions, and then shut up." And he goes, "If you can do that, you'll learn just about everything you need to learn to talk to them then about the value of what you're bringing to the table. Because right now, you don't know what their needs are."
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So about a month later, I'm sitting in on a meeting with a client, and it was working. And I literally started laughing out loud. And this client was a good friend of mine, ultimately became a very good friend of mine. I played tennis a lot with him. But I started laughing. They're like, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "The fact that it's working." And she said, "What's working?" I said, "The fact that I'm asking good questions, I'm shutting up, and you're telling me what I need to know to be able to help you."
Yeah.
And it was so self-effacing, she just couldn't help but laugh.
Yeah.
She said, "Well, yeah, I guess it is, because I want to buy some stuff." And I said, "Great." So, whether you're a newbie, intermediate, or you're a seasoned sales professional, there are always opportunities for you to hone the skills by taking everything that you've learned and then identifying, okay, what are the things that I know are absolutely mandatory? What are the things I need to have in my hip pocket? I would tell salespeople all the time, look, go to battle with a loaded gun, but you may not use any of your bullets. You may use some of them, or you may need all of them, but go to battle prepared.
And those military methodologies and analogies, of course, we're all about those here at Bulletproof Selling. And I completely agree with the fact that I've got to have a basic battle kit when I walk into a sales call. And I hate to think of my prospects as the enemy, because they're not, right? These are people that I want to help. And if I'm not working in with that, type of a mentality, I'm definitely going to lose before the battle's even begun. So if I've got my battle kit together, you mentioned something earlier in our conversation about one call closes. So I'd love to get your insight, because this is something that salespeople have been trying to crack for a long, long time. How do the questions that you ask, you mentioned just have 3 questions in your hip pocket. That's your basic, rucksack kit, so to speak. How does that factor into those one call closes? Or do I need to have a lot more than 3 questions answered when I show up if I expect to close on a single call?
It really depends upon where you're at in your sales cycle as a matured salesperson. I would not go in as a newbie with only 3 questions prepared. But certainly at this point in time in my career, one of the things that I know is that I have literally had tens of thousands of sales conversations with people across hundreds of different industries, across every nook and cranny of the United States. I think there's only been 3 or 4 states in the United States that I have not physically been in selling. Mm-hmm. And so once you have a good background with industries, I've had sales conversations with the financial industry, with the automobile industry, where people have asked me, so how long were you in the actual business of our industry?
Right.
You go, never. I said, I just ask, I hope, really good questions and listen so much to soak in as much information as possible. So one of the things that I really feel confident about is the fact that, ultimately every conversation, especially in a one-call close, comes down to making that prospect feel comfortable that you are not there to slam dance. Mm-hmm. You are there to simply listen to what they need, identify what their goals are, and to identify, does this fit? I've been in sales conversations where I said, you know what? I don't believe I can help you at this particular time. It doesn't mean I won't be able to in the future, but at this particular time, based upon what your needs are and where your budgets align and what you're trying to accomplish, I would like to suggest that we revisit this conversation maybe 3 to 4 months from now and re-engage, because you may be in a different place and I'll feel a lot more comfortable about what's going on.
Right, but right now it's just not a good fit. So if we're looking at, of course, getting better at shortening our sales cycle, and the pinnacle of that mountain, of course, is the one-call close. But I think that any salesperson in the world would be happier with just a shortened sales cycle, whether we carve a day off, a week off, a month, or a quarter, or years necessarily, depending on the length of it. So let's build a system around this, because I'm interested in something you said, which is I've been in thousands of these sales conversations, and I've soaked all of this in to the point where I can be sitting in front of someone in an industry I have no history in, and yet they think that I've been part of their business model for a long time. So when we talk about building systems here at Bulletproof Selling, we use the phrase, we're going to trim hope away from your sales strategy. And we use the acronym TRIM. Now, the T in TRIM stands for trigger. So if I'm working to shorten my sales cycle, I'm trying to pay attention to some things in my sales conversations, all of the speed bumps or the doors that get metaphorically or literally slammed in my face. And so if I'm going to start shortening my sales cycle to that one-call close, that's what, the goal is, at the end of the marathon that I'm running today in my career as a salesperson. What do I need to start paying attention to in every sales conversation so I can begin tracking those things? Because, I'd love to get to the point where you're at, Bob, 30 years in your sales career, but I want to get there possibly faster, okay, without having to learn everything the hard way, like I know you did and so many salespeople do. So what am I listening for in my sales conversations that I can just keep a note on? I heard that objection, that door slammed in my face, I couldn't get through to the decision maker. What are some of the things that you began tracking or you would advise salespeople track along the way?
Well, one of the things that became very apparent to me is that when I was young, I needed to learn as much as I could, soak up as much as I could. And that was so long ago that the internet really wasn't what
right.
it is. And I'm going to apologize that all of a sudden my lights are starting to the batteries.
Oh, no worries, dude. No worries.
But I look almost very Van Gogh-ish like. But
that's exactly.
The most important thing you can do is research. Be prepared. I was a Cub Scout. I didn't do the Boy Scout thing, but I did do the Cub Scout thing. And sure. One of the things that's absolutely mandatory is that no matter what sales conversation you're going to go into, you better know what's going on in the industry. You've done some homework on what's the hot thing, the cold thing, what's the next 3 to 5 years look like, what's the last 3 to 5 years look like. Certainly with this COVID era, it's flipped a lot of businesses, sometimes upside down in a good way, upside down in a bad way. And so you just have to be prepared. But when you go in to make those sales conversations, you have to be confident, you have to be comfortable, and you have to put your prospect in a position of saying, look, this person's done their homework, not just more than the normal person who comes in and asks me about my family and where I worked at before and all that junk that comes off of LinkedIn and everything else. Not that that's bad stuff not to know, but the reality is if you're not sincere, good luck. Gotcha. One of the worst things about being in sales is that, from a car salesman who everybody thinks is horrifically insincere, to someone who's in the financial wealth planning industry who better be extremely sincere if you're going to buy money places. So it's critically important that you have to be sincere and not just come off sincere, but be honestly sincere. So when you talk about those 3 questions, they're not just the boilerplate questions. You have to go in and say, okay, hey, where's your current pain at? Where's your current success at? Why did you get there? How did you get there? What are the things that you think you could do that would make that even more exponentially successful? And how
Mm.
can you at least help to mitigate, if not eradicate, those pain points? Because the reality is there's always going to be pain in our life.
Yeah.
And
So
it's really
yeah.
about how do we mitigate it. So when I would drop in out of a plane and I'd make one call sales closes, one real quick story,
Yeah.
my laptop, much like my light over here, died in
Ah.
a sales presentation. And we had this kind of semi-canned PowerPoint that we'd show people what they could buy and all the attributes of it, bells and whistles. And so I said, okay, well, no big deal. I pushed my laptop to the side, pulled out a tablet of paper, started drawing pictures on it, closed $36,000 at that table.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to the station. The salesperson walked in and goes, "You're not going to believe this. Bob's computer died and he still closed the 36 grand."
Yeah.
Now, why should that be special? This is just an asset. And if the
Right.
asset goes away, this is the asset that you walked in with, and you've got to be able to maximize that. So weird was that the regional guy that was with me, who was supposed to be training, told the CEO of the company, Bob must not like using computers in presentations.
Because he still was successful without one.
Okay. And the CEO in the next regional meeting that we had, everybody came together, they told the story, and the CEO looked at the guy that kind of threw dirt at me, and he goes, "So let me get this right. Bob's computer died. He used a piece of paper and a pencil and still closed $36,000. We have a problem. Why?"
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "No, no, no." So yeah, I was very fortunate that it worked out that way, and it was a great learning opportunity.
And so as you begin to build these experiences, then it sounds like first is mindset, which I absolutely love, because if you don't have the right mindset with a prospect, it doesn't matter how quick you want to close that thing because it ain't going anywhere.
Mhm.
So after mindset, then I think something that was really critical is contingencies. So you might not have planned for your laptop going down, but you had enough knowledge and experience to be able to still continue on with the presentation, answer questions, and get the deal closed. So if I'm in those meetings, I've got my mindset handled as much as I can, which I recognize is easily 90% of the battle here. But
Mhm.
we all want to make up the final 10%. I've got my contingencies in that if my tech fails, if I forget to bring my charts, if my pricing sheet is actually out of date or something else goes wrong, I can at least speak to that, or let someone know what I'm going to do to follow up to get them the most up-to-date and accurate information. What are some of the things that you began to track early on, the speed bumps, the walls that you were hitting that helped you recognize I need to figure out a way around these things because I'm consistently running into them and they are slowing down my sales cycle?
Well, one of the things that we always did, and I've always done, especially in leadership capacity, is as soon as we're done with the sales conversation, we are dissecting it from front to
Mm.
back to front. What went well? What didn't go well? What were the objections that we had? How do we overcome
Mhm.
them? Were we prepared to overcome those objections? Did we ask for the sale at the right time? Did we do enough trial closes to make sure the temperature was hot enough to go ahead and ask for the close?
Sure.
I mean, there are all those things that as you go through sales conversations, you're either mentally or you are literally writing down what is that we went through, how did we successfully navigate it? If we didn't, what can we do better next time? So it really becomes a matter of self-evaluation, if it's not with other people, by yourself, and determining, okay, what could I have done better even when I picked up the phone to make the phone call?
Right.
Was I in a good frame of mind? Did I smile even though they can't see me while I'm talking on the phone? Did I act comfortable? Was I confident about the speech that I used? Was I prepared? Did I have a script in front of me while I was on the phone, or at least an outline of the things that I wanted to be able to make sure that I was going to cover? So much about sales success is preparation. And
Hmm.
and after you've made that sales conversation, go back and look at, was I as prepared as I needed to be? What were the things that really tripped me up? And then how can I make sure that those things don't exist the next time I have the opportunity?
And so what you just did was you skipped ahead in my acronym. So congratulations, because the next piece of this after the trigger is making it repeatable. And so just to try to capture, and feel free to fill in any blanks that I missed here. In order to make this repeatable, I need to have a checklist or a map that I need to go back over after my sales calls that begins even before I made the call. Mindset, preparation on the call. Did I have my talking points ready that were unique and specific to their industry? Did I capture any objections along the way? I mean, to have little spaces to write all of that or to capture it in my CRM, but to make that process repeatable, Because if I only do it on once every 10 calls, I'm only going to get 10% of the improvement that I really could have gotten. But if I tag in on every single sales call and make sure I'm running this process, this repeatable process, I'm going to see drastic results at a massively higher level than all of my peers who are just trying to hope they remember what happened on the last call. So that was the repeatable piece. And you even talked about making it improvable, in that I want to make sure that if I'm hearing an objection today and I'm coming up with a response to it, that I'm executing that response. Because I'm guilty as this of anybody. Sean, I don't have enough money. Ah, shucks. And after the call, I'm writing that down and trying to research what I could have said instead. And then on the next call, Sean, I don't have enough money. And I don't have a response because I learned it, but I didn't use it, right? So how do you advise that salespeople get better at removing obstacles in the sales process in order to shorten that sales cycle?
Well, one of the things that you have to do is, you have to be, sincere and honest, and you have to be, I like to use the word affable. One of the things that I found is that everybody gets so tight in a sales conversation. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about $500, $5,000, $5 million. Everybody gets way too uptight, and that makes it more difficult to get through the sales process. So, one of the things that I've been an ardent supporter of is that happy talk that they suggest at the beginning really has to set the tone for what's the conversation going to be like. Now, some people don't want any of that, and that's okay. But you can still be comfortable and you can still be relaxed, because mirroring is something that we all do in sales. And if you sit down in front of someone who is very direct, very stern, and very proper, you can start with that mentality. But then as you start to back up, loosen yourself up, and relax your shoulders and speak more comfortably, you'll find that that person will also do the same thing. One of the things that I found in working with salespeople and as a salesperson myself is that when you get so comfortable with your sales process, and if you're selling the same product over and over, something very similar over and over and over again, one of the things that I found is that I would get bored.
Oh, yeah.
I would get mentally bored because I knew what was going to happen next. I knew what the next question was going to be. I knew what the next thing I was going to say. So I would literally in my head start bouncing the process around.
Sure.
So that I would change the order, not so much to confuse the prospect because they had no idea what I was doing.
All right, you were just keeping it fresh for you. Yeah,
I was keeping it fresh for me, and there we go. Now I'm fully in the dark.
You're good, man. I can still see you.
Yeah, to bring light to the subjects that are listening.
There you
go. One of the things that I could suggest is that it's all about constantly improving your process, constantly understanding what you did right, what you did wrong, constantly beginning to feel more comfortable, more confident every time that you sit down. And every once in a while, gut check yourself with a mentor. If it wasn't for mentors in my lifetime, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would not be as fortunate as I am today, because I had someone tell me to shut up. I had someone tell me when I was national sales manager of 2 television stations in Mobile, Alabama, Pensacola, Florida. I was doing great. I was flying. I was from the Midwest, so I was from the North. Yeah. And I was flying. I was working with a bunch of people in Alabama. And Bill Parks, one of my dearest, best friends and mentors, pulled me in his office one day, and he's the guy who hired me. He was general sales manager. Became great friends. He goes, Bob, he goes, let me tell you something. He goes, you are doing an awesome job here, Bob. We are so thankful that you've come to join us. But one thing that you're going to have a challenge in doing so is that you're going to need to learn how to slow down. He goes, those of us in the South, we are not ignorant, although we like to play ignorant sometimes. We like to be that dead possum that lets the bobcat walk on by us. But he said, the reality is, he goes, slow down. He goes, the people around you will appreciate it. The people in your life will appreciate it. And when you get to be old like me, because he was probably about 15 years my senior, he goes, when you get to be old like me, he goes, you're going to need to slow down because you won't be able to keep up that pace. And I said, I'm going to try. I'm going to try really hard. And it's really been a blessing.
So we've got the first probably 4/5 of this thing built already. We've got the trigger, we've got making it repeatable, making it improvable, and now the final bit, and then this is really where I tap into your insight as a sales manager. How do I measure the effectiveness of tracking the things that are stopping my sale from progressing, making sure that I'm improving them, and probably most importantly, if I'm managing a team, making sure that they're using this process? How would you do that? If you were going to step back a couple of years back into your role where you had all those salespeople under you.
Well, one of the things we have to realize, I'm a big Stephen Covey fan, managers want to do everything right. Leaders want to do the right thing. Mm. And if you're a sales manager, first of all, change your title. You're really a sales leader. You're a sales leader. And if you are not out in the battlefield with your troops, going on calls and identifying what their challenges are, and you're simply sitting back in the office, Eiffel Towering it, looking at a CRM and going, this person stinks, I need to fire them, or this person's a superstar, they look like in the last quarter anyway, so I need to just whip that horse more and let them run faster, and this one I need to take to the glue factory. The reality, you cannot, under any circumstances, and I was actually interviewed for a job that I was offered as VP of sales for a television company, and one of the first questions they asked me was, Bob, are you the sales manager that's in the office, or are you the sales manager that's on the street with your people? And I said, if you try to tie me to an office, I'll break free like a wild man. I said, that's not me. That's not my personality. And I can't do justice to the position or the company if I'm not on the streets identifying what their challenges are, what's going on in the marketplace, and how we can best prepare and position our products and services to maximize the revenue potential that we have available to us. So from a management standpoint, get the word management out, put the leadership word in, and get on the street and be constantly evaluating your personnel. CRMs are great tools, but they're a tool. They are the science. They are not the art behind sales success. So you have to combine the two and get out on the street, meet with your people, do that identification of what are they doing right, what are they doing wrong, do the diagnostics, and then collectively talk about it as a team and say, okay, I want everybody to come to the next sales meeting with 3 objections. Talk amongst yourselves. I don't want to hear the 3 out of everybody, because we know when we go around a table, oh, he took mine. Oh,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, say no, 3. And as a matter of fact, have 2 backups, because if all 3 of yours are gone, I got to
bring up new ones. Yeah.
So it's critically important as a manager that you are on the street. You're evaluating your staff. You're evaluating their sales skills, their closing skills, and you're also evaluating the prospects that they're choosing. They may be picking people that aren't even the decision maker. You may have to go back a few steps to make sure they really hone their sales skills and prospecting skills. And then you have to make sure that, are they presenting the right material? Are they asking those trial close questions? Are they closing at the appropriate time? And do they know enough about that particular industry to successfully and confidently have a good conversation?
So measuring by actually visiting your people in the field and watching them walk through the process. Yeah, that's something that all great leaders should be doing in any industry, but especially in sales. So, Bob, we've built a sales system here, and I'm so pleased about it, because I'm actually going to go out there and begin using it. Something that a lot of my listeners don't know, that I get a lot of benefit out of these calls from, learning from people like you, because it helps make my sales process better, helps me remove more hope from my sales strategy. So I know that you are also out there in the world doing great things, giving back knowledge. If people want to connect with you, if they want to get with you on LinkedIn or email or whatever method that, they say, I just want some more Bob in my life, how do they go about doing that?
It's Bob at bizdevsquared.com. So it's bizdevsquared.com. Don't look at the website, because it's about 100 years old. I've been focusing more of my effort on my golf show, which is Tea Time Florida. But and as it relates to the giving back part, I've been very blessed for the last 2 years while consulting for Fox or Bally Sports. I've been teaching sports marketing and broadcasting at a charter high school. So that's been a lot of fun. And that's really kind of given me an opportunity to sell young students and young minds on the value proposition of going into sports marketing or going into broadcasting. Or quite frankly, I tell every one of my students, I don't care if you don't learn anything about sports marketing and broadcasting, although I do. My primary goal is to teach you things about life that you'll be able to apply to everything. And if I can do that, then I've done my job as a teacher. And it's a challenging job that my daughter went before me and is a kindergarten teacher, which I would never have the patience for. I barely have the patience for middle school and high school students. But, the reality is it's been a great blessing for me. It's given me an opportunity to keep my mind working and churning, and still get to play in the field of advertising and media. And occasionally I get on TV and do a little golf show from time to time. So life is good for me. I can't imagine anything better. I've got healthy kids, healthy grandkids, and I just feel really blessed and so thankful.
And one of those rare teachers that continues to do as well as teach. And I know we all use more of those in our lives. So definitely check out the sales system that we're building from this. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. And for all of us that are, checking into Bulletproof Selling, make sure that you're following us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for these live streams. In case you miss one on the live feed, you can go out there and get the archives there. And of course, the podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere that podcasts can be found. And for more sales systems to help you replace hope with certainty, to get you better pipeline performance, free resources every single day that we're dropping over at bulletproof-selling.com. So Sean Rhodes here with a man that I'm very blessed and honored to call a good friend of mine, Mr. Bob Bolton. It's been a pleasure serving the sales community. Bob, let's go out there and make selling bulletproof.
Take care, Sean. Thank you.